Hello friends, I am Shivaji Bhaskar, Faculty of Russian at the School of Foreign Languages, IGNOU. I welcome you all to this course, Basics of Russian Communication Skills Part 1. If you remember, we have talked about various aspects of Russian grammar in our previous modules. We started with the Russian alphabet, then words, word combinations, verbs, conjugations, etc. Now, in this module, we will talk about the verbs aspects in Russian, as this is one of the most important part of Russian grammar in order to understand the continuity of an action or a completion of an action. So, we have two kinds of verbs, perfective and imperfective. Perfective verbs are something which completes the action, whereas imperfective verbs are something which actually determines the continuity of an action. For example, chitach, to read, it is an imperfective verb because it is in continuation, whereas prachitach is a perfective verb, which means that you have completely read the book or read something. Ya chitayu knigu, I am reading the book, but I have not completely read the book. Ya prachital knigu, I have completely read the book. So, these are the two verbs which are actually indicating whether the process in process or it has been completed. So, now we have very briefly touched upon the usage of perfective and imperfective. We shall be discussing about various other verbs of these two groups. But before that, let us pay attention to the text, with the help of which we will be understanding how and what kind of role do they play in Russian communication. So, please pay attention to the text. The title of the text is Portfель. Был такой советский писатель Аркадий Гайдар. Как писатель он был очень умный и талантливый. Были у него друзья, взрослые и дети. Дети очень любили его, потому что он часто писал рассказы о них. Гайдар тоже их любил. Часто они вместе ходили в лес, работали в саду, читали книги, пели, разговаривали, шутили. Гайдар жил в деревне. Однажды он решил поехать в Москву. Он взял свой небольшой старый портфель, пошел на вокзал. На вокзале были у его знакомые дети. Они ехали на экскурсию. Гайдар и дети долго. So now, with the help of this text, we will be discussing about the aspects of the verbs. As we know that we have two aspects in the verbs, which is known as perfective and imperfective. So, now let us pay attention to the text Portfель. Portfель, we already know, means briefcase. Был такой советский писатель Аркадий Гайдар. Как писатель он был очень умный и талантливый. Были у него друзья, взрослые и дети. Дети очень любили его, потому что он часто писал рассказы о них. Гайдар тоже их любил. Часто они вместе ходили в лес, работали в саду, читали книги, пели, разговаривали, шутили. Гайдар жил в деревне. Однажды он решил поехать в Москву. Он взял свой небольшой старый портфель, пошел на вокзал. На вокзале были у него знакомые дети. Они ехали на экскурсию. Гайдар и дети долго разговаривали. Дети спросили его: «Вы такой известный писатель, а почему у вас портфель такой нехороший?» Гайдар ответил: «Я думаю, это не так плохо. Плохо, когда писатель плохой, а его портфель хороший. Все начали смеяться. So in this text, we have talked about a very famous Russian writer, Arkady Gaidar. We will discuss about many verbs, words in the text, as you can see that how they are defining the story about the great Russian author Arkady Gaidar. Now let us go back to the text. The title of the text, as we know, is Portfel, which means briefcase. Был такой советский писатель Arkady Gaidar. So Arkady Gaidar is a very famous Soviet writer. So in the first line it is saying that был такой, there was a very famous Soviet writer Arkady Gaidar. Как писатель он был очень умный и талантливый. As a writer, он был очень умный, was very intelligent, и талантливый, and talented. Были у него друзья, he had friends. Взрослые и дети. So, some of the friends which he has were adults as well as children. Дети очень любили его. Children loved him very much. поэтому, इसको कट करेंगे, कंटिन्यू कर रहा हूँ. Потому что он часто писал рассказы о них. So, дети очень любили его, children loved him because he used to write stories about them. Гайдар тоже их любил, and Gaidar also loved them. So this expression тоже их любил is also for тоже, also их, them, любил. So Gaidar любил их. Gaidar loved children. Часто они вместе ходили в лес. Often, so this expression часто, они вместе ходили. As we know that ходить is the verb of motion from the group 2 which directs to the multiple direction. So now we have the verb ходить in a conjugated form for past tense. Они часто ходили вместе в лес. Работали в саду, worked in the garden. Читали книги, read books. Пели, sang songs. Разговаривали, talked. And шутили. Шутили is from шутить, to joke, and joked. Now we will go ahead and complete the text. Gaidar жил в деревне. So Gaidar, he lived in the village. So жить in a past form for он, for Gaidar is жил. Он жил в деревне. Однажды он решил. So again, однажды он решил from решать. Решить, this is the verb from perfective imperfective you will be learning about in a past form. Решил, from решить, he decided. Однажды он решил поехать в Москву. To go to Moscow. Поехать в Москву. Он взял свой небольшой старый портфель. He brought his not very big old briefcase. Пошел на вокзал. Went to the station, train station. На вокзале были у. So at the station, были и его знакомые дети. So at the railway station, what did he find? He found his old known friends who were children. На вокзале были у него незнакомые дети. Они ехали на экскурсию. They have come for the excursion. Gaidar и дети долго разговаривали. So Gaidar and children, they chatted for a long. Дети спросили его. So here this is the verb спросить means to ask in a conjugated form for они, for дети in past tense. Спросили кого? Просили его. Дети спросили его. Вы такой известный писатель, а почему портфель у вас такой нехороший? So they asked, you are such a famous writer, and why do you have such an old briefcase? Гайдер ответил, then Гайдер answers, я думаю, это не так плохо. So Гайдер answers, I think this is not that bad. Плохо когда? When it is bad, when писатель плохой, when author is bad, and а его портфель хороший, and his briefcase is good. So the emphasis is on that the person as an author must be good than his belongings. So все начали смеяться. Everybody started laughing. So this is a text about Гайдар, who was a famous Soviet writer, had children as friends and adults, as well as you have seen that how with the help of many other new verbs we have narrated the story. So now let us go to the words which we have in this text. We have words like takoi means such, Sovietsky means Soviet, Pisachel means writer, Umni means intelligent, Talantlivi means talented, Rozasliye means adult, Patamushta means because, Raskazi means stories, Razgavarivach means to talk, Shuchich means to joke. Then we have Adnashdi means once, Reshich means to decide, Payekhach means to go by transport because it is a verb of motion. Then Zyach means to take, Portfel means briefcase, Znakomie means acquaintances or known, Excursia means excursion, Nachach means to begin, and Smyatsa means to laugh. So these are some of the words, verbs, expressions which we have used in the text, with the help of which we have talked about the life of Gaidar, who was a very famous Soviet writer, and we have talked about that how he has such a good relation with children, and with the help of this story we have learned about that the person as an author should be good, should be talented, should be intelligent, and it is not up to his belongings. So that is why it is the text which is important. Now we shall talk about some of the verbs which we have used precisely, which actually tells about the aspects of the verbs in Russian. So we have shuchich, raskazivach, razgavarivach. Then we have some verbs like rishich, payekhach, zyach. So and two more verbs which we have used in the text like nachach and smyatsa. So these are the verbs which we will define as perfective and imperfective. Till now we would like to recommend you all to go through the text once again and use the words, verbs and expression which has been used in this text, and make your own text and discuss it with your family and friends, so that you can have a very good grip over the Russian language. So now we will discuss about the text, about certain verbs which have been used in this text about Arkady Gaidar. So before we go to these verbs and talk about their verb aspects, let us quickly review the text once again. Портфель был такой советский писатель Аркадий Гайдар. Как писатель он был очень умный и талантливый. Были у него друзья, взрослые и дети. Дети очень любили его, потому что он часто писал рассказы них. Гайдер тоже их любил. Часто они вместе ходили в лес, работали в саду, читали книги, пели, разговаривали и шутили. Now we will see the last part of the text. Гайдер жил в деревне. Однажды он решил поехать в Москву. Он взял свой небольшой старый портфель, пошел на вокзал. На вокзале были у него знакомые дети. Они ехали на экскурсию. Гайдар и дети долго разговаривали. Дети спросили его: «Вы такой известный писатель, а почему портфель у вас такой нехороший?» Гайдар ответил: «Я думаю, это не так плохо. Плохо тогда, когда писатель плохой, а его портфель хороший». Все начали смеяться. So here, if we go to the first part of the text, you can see some of the verbs like портфель. Был такой советский писатель Аркадий Гайдар. Как писатель он был очень умный и талантливый. Были. So in this case, since the verb быть has been conjugated in the past form for они, we can use the verb быть. Then further, у него друзья, взрослые и дети. Дети очень любили его. So the verb is любить. Again conjugated in plural form in past tense. Любили его, потому что он часто писал рассказы о них. So here we have the verb писать. Again conjugated in first person singular, писал. Рассказы о них. Гайдар тоже их любил. Again the verb любить conjugated for the first person singular. Любил in past form. Часто они вместе ходили в лес. So here we have used the verb of motion ходить in past tense for plural. Ходили в лес. Работали в саду. Работать has been used in conjugated form for plural. Работали in past form. Then we have читали книги. Читать has been used in past form for они in plural. Читали книги. Then пели from the verb петь means to sing in the past form for plural. Then разговаривали. Again разговаривать conjugation in past tense for plural. And шутили from шутить means to joke in the past form for plural. Now we will see more such verbs. Now let's go to the second part. Second part of the text. Text. Second part. Гайдар жил в деревне. Here the verb жить has been used for the first person singular. And then однажды он решил from решать. Решить, we have the conjugation of the verb решил in first person singular. Then он взял. So from the verb взять we have first person singular in past form взял. Свой небольшой старый портфель, пошел на вокзал. From пойти, past form пошел, first person singular. На вокзале были и его знакомые дети. Они ехали. From the verb ехать in past form for plural. На экскурсию. Гайдар и дети долго разговаривали. From the verb разговаривать in past tense for plural. Дети спросили. From the verb спросить, conjugation in the past form for plural. Then we have вы такой известный писатель, а почему портфель у вас такой нехороший? Гайдар ответил. From the verb ответить, again conjugated in past form for first person singular. Then я думаю. From the verb думать in present tense, however, for я. Then это не так плохо. Плохо, когда писатель плохой, а его портфель хороший. Все начали смеяться. From the verb начать in past form for plural. Начали. Then смеются. To laugh in again plural form. Все начали смеяться. So these are the verbs. Now we will discuss about these verbs in details and see how they are being conjugated. Now let's go to the list of the verbs. So, now all these verbs we will define them as imperfective and perfective. So, first let us see the verbs which are imperfective. Chitach, pisach, pech, nachinach. Then we have sprashivach, lubich, reshach, addikhach, zavtrakach, brach, atvechach and slushach. So, all these verbs are imperfective. Now, let us learn the meaning of these verbs. Chitach means to read, pisach means to write, pech means to sing, nachinach means to begin, sprashivach means to ask, lubich means to love, reshach means to decide or to solve, addikhach means to take rest, zavtrakach means to have breakfast, brach means to take, atvechach means to answer and slushach means to listen or to hear. Now, we will see their perfective aspects. As we already know the meaning of chitach and rest of the verbs, but what is the basic difference between the imperfective and perfective is that in imperfective the action is in continuation. However, when we talk about perfective, which means the action is been completed. So, for chitach we can have prachitach, to read completely. Pisach we have the verb napisach. So, from imperfective to perfective, please pay attention, this is a very important part of the Russian grammar. In order to express the completion of the process, we have to use the perfective verbs. So, pisach napisach, pech spech, nachinach nachach, sprashivach sprasich, lubich palubich, reshach reshich, addikhach addakhnuch, zavtrakach pazavtrakach, brach vzach, atvechach atvechich and slushach paslushach, paslushach. So, these are the combination of these different verbs and we have distinguished them as imperfective and perfective. For example, you can use chitach, yachitayu, nigu. I am reading a book, but I have not finished it yet. Ya prachitayu knigu. I am reading this book in order to read it completely. So, this is the basic difference. Moi brat pishat pismo. Moi brat pishat pismo. My brother is writing a letter. Moi brat na pishat pismo. My brother is writing me a letter. He has already completed the writing the letter and now he will send it. So, this is the sense of in this thing. Mi nachinayam rabotu. We are starting the work. Mi nachnyom rabotu. We will start the work and shall complete it. So, this is the basic difference between the usage of these all verbs. I hope the concept is clear to you all now. Now, we will go ahead and pay attention to the basic of these difference. So, the imperfective verbs can be used to denote action in past, present and future. So, imperfective, which we have seen many other verbs like chitach and slushach or pisach, all these verbs are of imperfective aspect which we can use to denote action in past, present and future. But to indicate the action taking place in future, the imperfective verb denoting action is preceded by the future tense forms of the verbs. Means to use быть. Сейчас он читает журнал Новый мир. Present tense. Right now he is reading the journal Новый мир. Вчера он долго читал газету Правда. Yesterday he was reading for a very long time newspaper Pravda. Вечером я буду читать твое письмо. So now future tense. In the evening I will read your letter. So you have seen we have used it in present tense, past tense and future tense. In this case we have used the verb chitach. First we have used in present tense chitayat, on chitayat, then we have used in past tense on dolga chital, then we have used in future tense by putting buj in a conjugated form, ya budu, ti bujash, onana bujat, mui bujam, vi bujiche and ani budut. So vecharam ya budu chitach tvayopismo, vecharam mi bujam chitach tvayopismo, vecharam ani budut chitach tvayopismo. So here we are conjugating the verb buj, whereas chitach remains same when we are talking about the future tense. You need to remember that to denote incomplete action in future, the infinite form of an imperfective verb is used and it is preceded by the conjugated form of buj, like we have done ya budu chitach tvayopismo. So the verb remains same, however we use the verb buj and conjugate it. So you have to be very careful while constructing the words, constructing the sentences of the future tense and how to use the verb buj. Now we will go ahead and pay attention to some of more examples. For example, ya budu chitach, I will read, ti bujesh pisach, you will write, on ana bujatra botach, he or she will work, mui bujam addikhach, we will take rest, we bujiche zavtrakach, you will have breakfast, ani budut ujinach, they will have dinner. So this is the basic construction of the usage of buj, and then you can put the verb like chitach, pisach, rabotach, addikhach, zavtrakach and ujinach, like we have used in order to explain it further. Now the perfective verb. The perfective verbs are used to denote complete action, either in the past or future. Perfective verbs cannot be used to denote action in the present tense. So you have to be very careful about the usage of perfective verb. For example, ya prachital knigu. In this case we are using the perfective verb in past tense in order to denote completion of an action. Ya prachital knigu. Vchera ya prachital knigu. Yesterday I completely read the book. So we can have more examples in order to understand it fully. Papa уже прочитал газету. Father has already read the newspaper. So here we have used the verb prachitach, completes an action, that father has completely read the newspaper. And сейчас я читаю ее. So right now I am reading it. So when we are talking about present tense, what do? We change the perfective verb into imperfective, because in present tense you must not use the perfective verb, only in past tense or future tense. The second one is brach. Brat сейчас очень занят. Brat сейчас очень занят. So here we have used the verb занят. Он прочитает твое письмо. Он прочитает твое письмо. He is reading your letter completely вечером. Он прочитает твое письмо вечером. So here we have given a sense of that he will read your letter completely only in the evening. So it is also a future tense. We have said that брат сейчас очень занят. So at present he is busy, занят. Он прочитает твое письмо. He is reading your letter, or he will read your letter when we put the вечером together. Он прочитает твое письмо вечером. So he will read your letter in the evening. That is why we have used the verb прочитать in this context. Now the second one is Инна долго решала эту проблему и наконец решила ее. So we are saying we have used the verb решать, which can only be used in the past tense, present tense and future tense, because it belongs to the imperfective verb. Inna dolga решала эту проблему. So Inna try to resolve the problem. Ina koniec, but at the end, Ana Rishila Io. So at the end, she could solve it. So we have talked about that she has solved it in the past. So what is the rule? The imperfective verb and perfective verb. In the past tense, you can use it in order to give the sense of completion. So we have used the verb rishich, rishich. That is a rishila, rishila. Whereas in the first case, we have used as rishala, rishala, which is of imperfective verb. So while using these different verbs in your sentences, you will have a fair idea how to use all these verbs together and as and when they are required as per the situation. So I hope this rule is clear to you. Now we will go ahead and pay attention to the next aspect. So now we will see the usage of perfective and imperfective aspects. The perfective aspect is used to denote completion of result of an action. For example, the word уже indicates completion of action. So whenever we use уже, which means that an action has been completed. The imperfective aspect is used to indicate the process of an action, repeated action, continuous action. For example, words like dolga, chasta, inagda, retka, kashdijian, these are all used in the imperfective action. So mnogaras etc. can also be used in order to give a sense of continuation. Indicate process or repetitive action while using all the words like in dolga, chasta, inagda, retka, kashdijian, mnogaras etc. can be seen in sentences. For example, like moi brat dolga pisal pismo. My brother wrote letter for a very long time. Dolga pisano. From this statement, it is not clear whether moi brat, my brother, completed the letter or not. But if it is said that moi brat napisal pismo, because we have used the verb napisach, which is of perfective verb. So napisal indicates that he has already completed the action, that he has written the letter completely. So you have to be very careful while using them. In this case, if you see that when the brother is writing a letter for a long time, we have used on dolga pisal. However, the conjugation is in past tense pisal, but it is not clear whether he has completely write it or not. But in case of napisal, it means the action of letter writing by him has been completed. Okay, now we will go ahead and pay attention to a few more sentences in order to understand this concept completely. In the sentence, Proshlam gadu mi dolga adda khale Kashmir. Proshlam gadu, last year, mi dolga addi khali. We rested for a long Kashmir, in Kashmir. So the imperfective form of the verb indicates the process of a continuous action. That is why we have used the verb conjugation addi khali from addi khach, not from adaknuch, because if we use adaknuch, then it means the action has been completed. Mi planiruem adaknuch Kashmir sledushigod. We are planning to take rest in Kashmir next year. So by using this kind of conjugation, we can say that we are using it is in future tense, and there you can use these verbs of perfective group. Now in this sentence, mi уже adaknuli chipernada rabotej. It is very clear that when we use adaknuch in past form, perfective form, it means that we have completed the action. Mi уже adaknuli chipernada rabotej. We have already rested, now we will, it's time to work. Nada rabotej. Now we need to work. Completion of first action is indicated. Perfective aspect is also used when one action follows another. For example, on pazaftrikal, he had breakfast, in nachal chitach gazietu. So first he had the breakfast, it's completed, and then the next process, on nachal chitach gazietu. So we have used the verb nachach, nachach in the conjugated form nachal chitach gazietu, which is not completed yet. So the process is still going on. However, the first process is completed on pazaftrikal. So if we have used zaftrakat, then it would have been not completed. So, you can understand it clearly that if two actions take place simultaneously, imperfective aspect is used. For example, Kagda ya chital gazietu brat slushal muziku. Both the process are in continuation. Kagda ya chital gazietu, when I read the newspaper, brat slushal muziku, brother listened to the music. So, both the actions are continuous, not completed. It gives that sense. So, that is why we say that if two actions takes place simultaneously, only imperfective aspect is used. In this case, you have used the verb chitaj from the imperfective group as well as slushaj from the imperfective group. However, it is in the context that plays a crucial role in the usage of correct aspect of a verb. So, what is most important here is that you can very easily identify the verbs from perfective and imperfective, but the context when you make a sentence or you try to narrate something, then you have the liberty to use the aspects of these two verbs, but the only thing remains is that whenever you try to communicate in Russian while using these verbs, the intention, the meaning should be absolutely clear. So, in this module we have discussed about the usage of verbs like chitaj, prachitaj, pisaj, napisaj and many other verbs, and then further we have categorized them as imperfective and perfective. We have understood their usage as when we use imperfective verbs, it gives a sense of continuation, whereas when we use the perfective verbs, it gives a sense of completion of an action. So, with the help of another verb być, we used it in order to give meaning to the sentences of future tense, and that is why we have conjugated być, whereas the other verb remains same. So, with the examples of perfective and imperfective verbs, we understood that these different verbs can be used as per the requirement of the sentence. They can be conjugated in the past tense as in future tense. However, the context as well as the meaning and intention of the sentence remains prime, and that is why you have to read it and understand it very clearly where and when to use the verbs aspect. I hope this concept is absolutely clear to you all. Now, in the next module, we will be discussing about the further details about the verbs aspects. I hope you all like this module. Thank you.